Now we're speaking to the people. This is going to be a real serious conversation, y'all, about very serious topics and not how much I stared at Tara Satana's breast the entire movie. All right. This is serious cinema discourse about film history.
Okay, I'm ready.
Serious cinema. All right, here we go. In 3, 2, 1. And welcome to episode 414 of Cinematary. I'm your host, Zach Dennis, and I'm here with
Jessica Carr,
Grace Winburn,
and Andrew Swafford.
In today's episode, we're going to be talking about movies that we saw this week in part 1, which is actually just going to be one movie this week because we're jumping in discourse. And then in part 2, we're going to be continuing our Young Critics Watch Old Movies series with 1965's Faster, Pussycat, Kill, which I'll say with that inflection every time.
I think you should say it while pronouncing the punctuation. Faster, comma, Pussycat, exclamation point, kill, exclamation point.
I kind of wanted to say it.
Who has the time?
I wanted to say it like an old British man. I just kind of be like, faster, Pussycat, kill. Like I was like a bad James Bond impersonator. Which sounds like a James Bond title to be, if we're being honest.
It does, yeah.
I could see it as an Austin Powers.
Yeah, the Austin Powers riff on Octopussy or something. Yeah,
that'd be good too. I was thinking of Austin. We'll talk about that in part 2. I was thinking about Austin Powers though when they were like karate chopping. It reminded me of Michael Caine going judo chop.
Deadly.
Anyway, that's a whole other thing. That's for part 2. That's part 2 nonsense. In part 1, let's talk a little bit about the movie sweeping the nation, the old discourse starter, and that is Nope by Jordan Peele.
Is there discourse about this movie? I mean, I know that
there's discourse
people
about
have disparate opinions, but as someone who's not on Twitter anymore, I don't know.
I'm just saying discourse to just kind of just
Lucky
get this
you.
along. Really, I'm just moving this thing along, man. It's a train. So Nope is follows Daniel Kaluuya and Keke Palmer's characters, who are horse trainers for Hollywood. They live in this love this word, a gulch in California. They live in a gulch. Yeah. And while they're living there, there's a unidentified flying object that they see over their house, and so they try to get more and more information and figure out why it's there as the days go along. This also stars Stephen Yeun, Keith David's in it for like 3 minutes, which is a crime, to be honest, and David Wincott. But yeah, I think everybody here has seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Who wants to jump in the water and talk about Nope first, or jump on the horse and talk about Nope first?
Well, I think we should preface for our listeners that we are an even split on this movie. We have 2 negative voices and 2 positive voices. So maybe we should first hear the case for the movie.
No. I think we should do negative first.
You think we should do negative first?
Yeah, because I feel like we're gonna be defending it for the whole rest of that time. So I feel like
I wanted to give you your time, like have the floor.
I need to be locked and loaded so I have time to think about
what the
problem. Problem is, bro.
Should we do it that way?
Yeah.
Let's ask our video audience.
A visual joke.
Let's poll our audience right now.
Okay, we can start negative.
Yeah, let's go for it.
I will open the discourse here
now there's discourse.
As someone who is like blissfully unaware of the actual discourse. Here's my interjection to it. So my take on the Jordan Peele oeuvre as it exists right now is Get Out. I think is an amazing movie. I underrated it when I reviewed it on Cinematary back in the day. So maybe I will say the same thing about Nope later on. I don't know. Us, I mostly enjoyed, but felt like it did not even come close to the same level, mostly because of the way that Jordan Peele decided to just play in ambiguity in that movie. He did the whole marketing thing where he like marketed it as like the Rorschach ink blot. The movie means whatever you see in it, and I think that's just kind of like a dumb goal to pursue personally. Yeah, and with Nope, I was kind of expecting a little bit more of that. I was going in somewhat pessimistic. You know, the trailer doesn't look that good. I'm expecting this to be along the same lines of Us, where it's a little bit messy, not nearly as like pointed and thoughtful as Get Out, right? And I did get that. That is mostly how I feel about it. But the bigger, more overriding feeling that I was really surprised by is I was not expecting to be bored. I did not. I thought that it was very possible that Jordan Peele could make a messy movie. I did not think it was humanly possible for Jordan Peele to make a boring movie. And like, I just think this whole thing feels a little dull. I think that these characters are not particularly interesting. I don't think they're given interesting lines. I don't think the performances are particularly evocative, though I do think Keke Palmer is a great performer in general. I just don't think her character is given much to do here. And I thought that like the actual like visuals of it, the setting that we're in, and kind of like the dynamics of the images just felt very flat to me. Like, I'm seeing a lot of things on Letterboxd about how, like, you know, the spectacle is amazing and like every single shot feels like it matters and every image feels like a thing that Jordan Peele has like been mulling over for 10 years or whatever. But I like never felt like any of the individual images were all that inspired, really. It just felt like he was getting coverage for this kind of uninteresting set that's just like a flat plane, basically.
Yeah, he has Hoyt van Hoytema, who's done a lot of the recent Christopher Nolan movies. He did like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, very acclaimed.
He's a great
cinematographer.
I don't feel like he gets that much to shoot here. I don't know.
No, it's very expansive. I was thinking about how I was thinking about it in comparison to some like kind of more classic westerny movies, or even something like Night of the Hunter, which utilizes space in like a sinister way, and I felt like that would have been better suited than like Hoyt van Hoytema going like, bah!
Yeah, it just all feels, and you know, it's a flat land, but it does feel all very flat and empty. And like, I also thought that the way the plot kind of like unfolded felt a little flat and empty to me too. Like, the movie just it's his longest movie by a lot. It's like over 2 hours and 10 minutes or something. It takes like 40 minutes to like show its hand and explain what it's even about. And then once it explains what it's about, you're kind of just seeing variations on the same scene on a loop for the rest of the movie. Like, these people were running around trying to take a picture of this thing. Did they get the picture? Oh, nope. Maybe they'll get it next time. You know, like, I'm experiencing that scene over and over and over. And like, if I sit and mull it over, like, I think there are thoughtful things going on in this movie about like, it's kind of a meta. It feels to me like kind of a meta textual thing about cinema. You know, you have this UFO creature that looks like a giant eye. You have these characters who are, they trace their roots back to the earliest days of Hollywood. There's one character, Stephen Yeun's character, refers to the aliens, quote unquote, as the viewers. And then there's like, these are all people who kind of like work in the sidelines of Hollywood, and they're kind of getting to be heroes here, and they have to like employ the help of a cinematographer to help them save the day, yada yada yada. Like, it's very movie about movies, but I don't feel like those things come together and congeal into anything particularly like firm or interesting. And B, I wasn't really thinking about those things or enjoying like what was actually happening on screen while I was watching it. So I was just like, I left really deflated and disappointed, because like, I love Jordan Peele in all of his various projects, and like, even not liking Us a whole lot, it was still like a very viscerally like thrilling movie, and I just didn't get that from Nope. That's my opening statement.
Yeah. Are you gonna
that's insane. That is so crazy. It's so crazy that you watched that and you didn't like feel excited about what was going on. That's just insane. I feel
like people are watching like different movies. I don't understand.
Yeah, like Are you personally like scared of aliens in any way? So like the idea of being sucked into like
X-Files, you ever heard of it?
Yeah, like
Hey, you just watched Event Horizon with me last weekend, Jessica. You know that
I mean,
I was spooked.
yeah,
by
but
an alien
that's
movie.
hell in space. That's a little bit different. This is like, I mean, and even in the movie, they explain like the different types of aliens. Like it could be us from the future, or it could be these like things that are trying to probe us, and like I don't know, the mechanics of the I don't want to spoil anything. This is the non-spoiler part, I guess. But the mechanics of like what the thing is doing and like sucking them into, and how we're given the viewpoint of a person who is like being sucked into that is terrifying to me. Like I'm claustrophobic, but also like it's like that specific scene where all of the people at the amusement park are like sucked into that is a horrifying idea to me. Like, first of all, crowds, like I hate crowds, giant groups of people all together. That's already scary. But then imagine like all of you being like sucked into the air and being crammed into essentially like a digestive system, like all together, and like not being able to breathe and only hearing people screaming. And
I think
like
that's scary to think about, and it looked kind of weird on screen, but I wasn't scared watching it happen. Like it didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't feel like the movie worked to create a scare.
Yeah. It looked good on screen is like I think such an understatement. Like the sound design and like the way that we're viewing like this thing that is sucking people into the air. Like I don't understand how you don't think that was like crafted like beautifully and done well. Like it's I don't know. Like
I mean, I'm not going to say it's not done well. Like it doesn't look good, because it does look good, right? But I think the affect of it matters a lot. And again, this is subjective. This is like people watching different movies. Your mileage may vary on like, how scared you are by the concept while the thing is happening. But the only time the movie actually scared me was a fake out scare. It was there's a moment where like you think aliens have actually shown up.
That got me too.
I
like that.
Yeah, it was so good.
That felt like that was such a good little like jump scare. I was like, I was like, and then when he
and then the movie goes
like,
a different
that
direction.
feels like Peele. One thing that I really like about like his approach, and like it's also like in the naming of like these movies, is it's like our visceral gut reaction. Nope. Like there are some people that have that fight or flight, and we're going to talk about fighting and flighting a lot in the second half. And then, Get Out. It's a horror movie set in a haunted house. Like you're yelling at the screen, like, get out of there. Like I think that this still like had some trademarks of him, but I can agree that it like definitely wasn't very scary. But I also don't think that like a lot of alien movies that I've seen have ever been very scary.
Mm-hmm.
Like
I don't trying more to be a sci-fi thing than a horror.
Yes, and then you were saying like how this is a movie, like it's a movie about movies, and like what are two more recognizable genres than like a Western and an alien movie? Like I think that is I really enjoyed that aspect of it. This is a Western alien movie, and like everything about it like
Cowboys versus aliens,
like a really nice
Cowboys versus aliens. Why are we not
talking
about
like
Cowboys
it's such
aliens?
a good, it's always so good to see. Like those mesh so well for me. So I had a lot of fun. That's still like my number one takeaway is like, how fun. That was wonderful. Like, I really enjoyed myself. Great time at the picture show. Like, the discourse on Twitter is that it was slow, like you said, like the pacing wasn't there, or, boring. Like, but I didn't think it was boring at all. But the discourse is that it's slow paced, and people weren't getting it. They didn't understand. They said that they had to think more around it, and it's fun, right? No, it's fun, like listening to us, and it's like having all of this like extra and like very like layered and nuanced conversation, when meanwhile other people are like, I didn't even understand it. I had to think about it. Like,
I think that Jordan Peele makes movies that demand you to think about them, right? Like Get Out is a movie that like kind of invites you to immediately watch it again. and like notice every single detail that's kind of seeding where it eventually goes. And like one criticism I saw on Letterboxd was that like this movie feels like it is designed for like a YouTube explainer video or something. And I didn't really get that out of it. It didn't feel like it was trying to be like a puzzle box movie or anything to me.
I could picture someone doing a little like, now the whole thing is like TikTok explainer videos. I see those on my For You all the time, and I scroll so fast because they're just gonna rot my brain. But it would be someone pointing to Steven Yeun's red like nudie suit during the Starlight Lasso experience. You can see the saucer on his back,
alien, the UFO, yeah.
And then like there were the skulls around like the flowers that like looked like the little like big eyes and like round face aliens like all throughout. Like,
I did not see that.
Did you notice that?
So,
hey,
well, he would have designed the jacket because he was making money off of that. Like he
was trying to be like a cult leader or something.
Yeah, like also they had like the alien masks and shit that they were selling at the amusement park.
Right.
Now, can you guys explain to me, like, is there more to get about the kids in the alien masks that Steven Yeun's got working for him? Like, that seemed like such a one-off thing.
Those are his kids. Yeah.
Like kids.
Okay. It just felt like such a weird left turn.
Future Dakota Johnsons of the world unite under alien suits.
I thought that the whole point of the movie was like people trying to make money off of spectacle. So like things that are tragic events that are happening and like trying to make money off of that. And like the very obvious like thing was the TMZ guy, because it's like literally his helmet was a mirror and he had one eye hole that was looking and like recording all the time. And like it reminds me of just kind of like how now like when tragic events happen, like when there's a shooting or when like just anything like that happens, we have footage of it now. Like there are always cameras everywhere watching things, body cam footage. And these are all things that we have at our fingertips. Like we could watch them at any minute. And there are people who sit around and watch like the 9/11 videos over and over and over again. And they're feeding off of this tragedy. And there are people that are making money off of this. And like, I think that it is on purpose that a lot of the people who meet their demise in the movie are people that are specifically trying to exploit like other people to make money off of the aliens. And like Steven Yeun and all of them get sucked up and have like maybe one of the worst deaths because he's trying to capitalize on it. And if there was one criticism that I had with the movie is that I think that there are lots of pieces in it that kind of don't connect and don't make sense, which he tends to do that in his movies, where I think he knows that there are going to be like people watching it who are like, well, I saw this and I caught this and I wanted to put this together. And like the animal thing just like didn't fully connect. Like the title cards with the animals' names, and it's like they're talking about the UFO like it is a predator, like it is a creature. And so the title cards are supposed to be each section of the animal and like either it like reaching its demise or like it preying on something.
So I thought this was weird for a couple of reasons. Like one, the chapter intervals feel kind of like randomly placed. Two, I didn't feel like any of these animals had like personality. Like the movie did not dwell upon them for me to like get a sense of their personality. So I never really learned their individual names. And like three, like the animals didn't seem to like the animal that the chapter title is named after usually doesn't even get that much focus in its chapter. Like it felt really random to me, the whole thing.
Yeah. Go for it.
I'm thinking, well, now I'm like thinking more about it and like how they named the alien. Are we like? Is this spoiler free? Am I able? Well, we've been saying
Jessica already said that
whatever.
Stephen Yeun died,
like,
so
yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry,
It was
everybody.
gorgeous. Like that was beautiful. The way it like unfolded like that. I thought that was stunning. But them calling the alien Jean Jacket and like Kiki's horse was M's horse was supposed to be Jean Jacket. That was supposed to be mine, and they named it Jean Jacket, and she was the one that got the shot, so it's hers. Like I think that like they are. I think that the names were deliberate, and I kind of like that. Like I was thinking back onto Ghost about how like his whole thing is like a not every animal can be trained. Maybe you know this can't be trained. You know, like
I think that's a really good point, because I was confused about the Gordy stuff, because I think that is supposed to be like super important, and it's supposed to be revealing something about the story to us, and it's kind of like I'm not sure. Is he like? Are they saying this is spoilers? Everyone, okay? Spoilers.
You're past that.
Why are you listening to this if you have not seen that?
I'm just saying. But like whenever Stephen Yeun as a child is like looking at the chimp, and he goes like he's already killed everyone and bludgeoned them all to death, and like he goes to fist bump him because it's what he was trained to do on the show. So it's like, even though they're animals, they're still trained, like it's still going against their nature when they have this training in their head. And so they're trying to essentially, like, you can break a horse, then you can break this alien as well. So it's like trying to be like, okay, we can like, the alien is mad at us, and so now we're going to try to trick it so that we can break it or whatever. But then they end up just killing it, I guess. And so that's kind of the like disconnect. Like, is that what we were? Is that what we were trying to do? So,
I don't think that there.
Grace, go ahead.
Oh, wait, go ahead. Yeah.
I don't think that there was a disconnect, because like Gordy was an animal that they trained, and then I think that Stephen Yeun's character felt some sort of responsibility for this animal that he had been trained alongside, the exact same way that the Haywoods feel like this sort of ownership, responsibility towards their horses and the animals that they train. And then when those animals like go against their training and then rather like go instincts only, then and like the havoc that ensues, the chaos and the death and the carnage, there seems to be this sort of like responsibility, like this is my fault.
And then, in both cases, they do have to kill the thing. Like
and like the only thing that can be done to like save everyone from the damage, there is no going back, is just to kill it. So it's like, we can't train this thing, we can't contain it, it can't be tamed. It's like Miley Cyrus, it can't be tamed, you've got to put it down.
I'm curious what to do with any of that though. Like,
that's a good point.
Is the movie straight up just like about animals and whether or not animals can be tamed? That seems like a weird thing for a movie.
No, I think the Gordy thing is so Stephen Yeun's profiting off of his trauma by kind of regurgitating that in his show. And so he had this very traumatic thing happen to him, and he's using that to, make money. And the ending of the ending of the movie, you see after Kiki Palmer's killed the alien, you see all the press people and the media people like showing up. And that's why she kind of looks at them first, makes the face, because it's literally almost like repeating the cycle where she's just gone through this very traumatic thing where she thinks that OJ's died, and is about to like use this trauma that she's going to have to become this whole media cycle that she's been kind of craving since the beginning of the movie, until OJ shows up, and that kind of breaks it to a degree.
There's
I
also
did not.
Bush or something.
Yeah, that's a good point. I did not think about it that way.
Yeah,
But,
I mean,
like,
it didn't change anything for me. It's just I understood what's going on.
If we're
Yeah,
talking
like,
about,
But
oh, go ahead,
I
Jessica.
just think that the writing just should have been tighter, but it doesn't affect how I think that I enjoyed the movie. Like, I still think that it was cohesive enough and scary enough for me to be engaged with it. And I also enjoyed like the Haywoods together as characters, and like I've seen lots of stuff about like all of the characters being flat and like we don't know anything about them. And my only character that I have huge complaints about is Steven Yeun's character, because it's like if we either need to be given like more or less of his backstory. Like
Yeah.
when we're given more of it, it's like what caused okay, so this child went through this extremely traumatic thing. What causes him to become a piece of shit? Like
What caused him to become
I
interested
don't
in aliens? Like, how do we get
Yeah, like,
from point A to
yeah.
point B there?
do you think
Well,
it's like
I think he got interested in the aliens because he had been there for probably however long, and had probably noticed the alien, and so
Yeah,
he's
I
like,
guess
"Ooh,
that's true.
here, money."
do you guys think that it could
Yeah.
have had something to do with the shoe? I keep coming back to the shoe a lot and how it was
That
sticking
is-
straight up. I don't know if that
yeah.
was just an omen or something miraculous, like
The
a
movie
Shattered
seems to
Turin
be-
thing that he looks towards is like, this is some beacon, this is my hope, this is something that I focus on in the middle of a massacre, and it seems to have this sort of like special property that makes it just stand straight up.
Well,
And
it's like a bad miracle, which is the
Yeah.
whole that's like another part of it too.
Mm.
It's like something that happens that is not it is it's impossible that it happened, but it is not good that it happened. And I thought that was like that's a good point. There are lots of like awful things that happen that are unexplainable that it's like what is the word for that? I also don't know. Like I think it's I think it's
a
interesting.
tragedy, a catastrophe.
There's a couple words. I look at. I thought Angelica Jane Bastian had a really nice review of the film where she kind of gets to the heart of how I felt about it. Thanks for asking, everybody.
what did you think?
You
about
could have
it?
jumped in at
Please,
any moment.
After you, I would love to hear what you have to say.
Where she says that it's visually spectacular, but Nope has nothing to speak of, and that's kind of my overall feeling. Is like, yeah, the visuals are strange because, like Andrew, what you were talking about, it's this vast open space. I've seen some people. I don't know if Jordan Peele necessarily made this claim, but I've seen some people kind of call it like it's Jaws, but the shark is a UFO. And the thing about that is that it's ironic with a movie about movie making that they wouldn't make a little bit more of a decision to, hide the monster a little bit more and kind of like really lean on cinematic tricks to really emphasize the horror and the spectacle of it. It becomes, which I mean it has to be. It's literally it's a UFO, and so it becomes kind of a CGI show up there. But it's just kind of, I think it's just there's a lot of roads going on here, a lot of paths that I just don't think he finishes. And
Yeah.
I kind of felt the same way with Us. I feel like I kind of feel like Jordan Peele should find like either a writing partner or somebody else, because I think he's very obsessed with like creating all these pathways for different people that are all supposed to be like speaking to something and connecting with something and things like that, but then they don't connect to being a cohesive piece. Like that's what Get Out was great, because it was very tight, it was very contained. There wasn't any real room to like branch out too much. I mean, it has wild moments, but it's contained within that world. And this one, I think the big issue, which is ironic because Get Out's so tight, is he's so obsessed with everything outside the camera that what's in the camera becomes jarbled, because he's kind of trying to make. I've seen all the different points he's trying to make and the symbolism, and like that's great. But if you can't bring that all together into one thing and tie it with a bow, then what's the fucking point? And like so like the ending scenes, like that's fun, like while they're chasing the UFO around, like it's exciting. Like Keke Palmer's great, Daniel Kaluuya's great, but it kind of felt like it was a lot of stuff thrown at you, and then it ends, and I'm like, well, what the hell did any of it lead? Like, what was the point of any of that?
I mean, they survived. Like isn't that enough? They survived. Like that's I don't know. I thought that the ending was so good.
I'm not made to care about them all that much though. Like I don't see the interest in these characters. Like where is it?
I cared about them a lot.
I liked the line of like their family's history going all the way back to like being the first like exploited image, and then they're the one taking the like now what would now be the most exploited image, of picture of an alien.
Well, I mean, I think that is really cool conceptually, right? But like, what
that makes me care about name
a personality trait that Daniel Kaluuya's character has.
Stoic,
grumpy,
thoughtful.
Like it's just doing like the blank affect.
Dirty.
Yeah.
No, he's not given. Nobody's really given much to work with, to be honest. Like that's what's very frustrating, is they're all very good, and they're all. But I mean, like the points we've made, Daniel Kaluuya is not given anything to do. Keke Palmer's not really given much to do. Steven Yeun's not given much to do. You know, it's just like, and so they're all doing like a great job, but it's I think it's away from the text. It's kind of just like Keke Palmer's just having a ball, you know. Daniel Kaluuya is just kind of brooding around. You know, it's like it's great, but it doesn't do anything.
I disagree. It's so nice whenever you have like a horror movie protagonist that is like, nope, absolutely not. Like instead of them like trying to be the hero, they're like, I love that he just like falls asleep in the truck because he's like, I'm not going to try to get out like of this vehicle while this thing is like flying around.
I feel like he also acts that character in Get Out, but the character in Get Out has so much more personality to him. Like, I feel like I know that guy, you know?
I think that one of the things that I thought about, that I was confused about the choice, is that like Jordan Peele likes to do this thing in his movies where the like main protagonist, like we're given a flashback of them having like a traumatic moment in their childhood. And when it's revealed in the movie, we get some sort of insight to the connection in the plot that is going on and how it impacts them. But that flashback is given to Steven Yeun's character, and I don't understand like that. I don't understand why that was the case. Like if it was given to Daniel Kaluuya's character, then maybe you would feel more connected to him, and you wouldn't have this like, well, I don't really care if they survive or not.
Well, Daniel Kaluuya's character is given, like, he's established as a guy who's grieving because in his first scene his dad dies, and like that is sort of the dominant like part of his character for the rest of the movies. Like in both cases, in Steven Yeun and Daniel Kaluuya, it almost feels like we're using trauma as like a shorthand to a character or a personality, but are not actually seeing the character who was traumatized, right? That's my feeling.
It's kind of nice not seeing like some tragic backstory. Like, to like be very frank, like it's nice when Black people in film don't have added trauma, like where we don't have to like dig and make it sad. I saw somebody who was writing a review or a critique or whatever about how like Nope is just as like also about like Black joy, and how like that's like worth like looking at, and that's like worth talking about. And so that's a really good point about like the trauma like gives you further insight into them, but like making the traumatizing experience, like the death of this figure that he has just like modeled himself after, like his identity like goes away. So then it's like, well, who is he going to be following this? Like, how is he going to step up? He's got a legacy to fill. It's a really big Stetson his dad left behind. Like, does it fit? No, he wears a Carhartt trucker hat. Like, you know, what can he do to like make this identity for himself? And but I look at him as a loving older brother that like has a great relationship with his younger sister and has always seen her. Like, I liked their little sign off to each other. Like, that really, like, that got me. I got a little
Yeah.
sad watching him and like her do that. I was like, no, he's gonna die. Like, and then he lives on a horse called Lucky. Like, how great is that? It's
Lucky is the only horse that survives.
isn't that great? Like,
I mean, I like that interpretation of his character. If only, I mean, gosh, I wish they would have written that into the actual character. That would have been great.
I'll call up Jordan. I follow him on Twitter. It's fine.
Yeah, like that sounds awesome. If only they could have imbued that into the actual text. That would have been nice.
I'll give him my notes sometime.
Anything else on note before we wrap it up, or
It's a good movie. We have the final word. Yes.
Here's a
Yeah, I mean-
non-note. Oh, go ahead, Jessica.
And like I know that Zach hates when I do this, where it's like, shouldn't we be thankful that we got a movie like this?
I am actually thankful. Yeah.
It's like there's so much shit that's coming out now, and like, is giving Jordan Peele money to make a blockbuster really the worst thing ever? No.
no, but I mean, he made a bunch of money on this, so it's not like he's gonna lose his thing. Like, I mean,
Can we talk about Gray Man next?
no, we gotta go. Sorry.
I do want to piggyback off of Jessica's point and say, like, I am really thankful for Jordan Peele as like a household name auteur. Like,
Yeah.
his movies get marketed as a Jordan Peele film, not like the new Blumhouse movie or whatever. Like, people, he is sort of like inspiring a certain like level of casual moviegoer to think about filmmaking from like an authorial level. And I think about like filmmaking choices and stuff like that. That's really cool. It's really, really cool. And I'm so glad that we have like original standalone blockbusters that are giving so much creative control to a filmmaker like Jordan Peele, right? And I definitely want to see where he goes from here, because I think he's a talented dude. The movie this year that he's involved with that I'm more excited for than Nope though is Wendell and Wild. Have you guys heard of this movie?
Henry Selick movie.
It's a stop motion animated film starring Key and Peele, directed by Henry Selick, creator of Coraline, and it's about two demons trying to escape from hell. I want to see this movie. It's got to be great.
Yeah.
All right.
No, I mean, I agree, but at the same time, like it's not that one is not exclusive to the other. It's great that Jordan Peele is making these movies, and it's great that people are showing up for original entertainment. You can still criticize it.
Yeah.
Here he goes. That can't just be
Beggars, chippy choosers.
No, I'm not gonna virtue. If anything, we're not doing him any good if we're just like hailing him as
Here
this,
he goes.
genius. Like, come on, like you can still criticize him. Jesus.
It's possible that like getting hailed as a genius with his first movie has kind of fucked him up.
Yeah, if anything.
But I mean, he came out fucking guns blazing.
I mean,
oh
it's so
gosh.
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Christ almighty. Like,
I mean, he did it already.
shocking.
It's like,
Yeah. You know, so did Orson Welles. Orson Welles made some good movies after that.
Who?
Orson Welles.
Never heard of him.
Oh man.
All right, well, we're gonna go talk about another auteur in part 2 as we karate chop some dudes with Faster Pussycat Kill after this.
Good solid half hour on Nope, Colin.
We're talking about Russ Meyer and bosoms now.
Ample bosoms.
No, what did he say? Substantial bosoms.
Substantial.
That's the adjective you would decide to go with. All right. Rock and roll. Cool. All right. Andrew, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. And we're back with episode 414 of Cinematary. In this part, we're going to be continuing our Young Critics Watch Old Movies series with 1965's Faster Pussycat Kill. Directed by Russ Meyer, from a script by Meyer and Jack Moran. The film stars Tura Satana, Haji, Laurie Williams, Susan Bernard, and Stuart Lancaster. The film follows sadistic go-go dancers Varla, Rosie, and Billy as they break free from the nightclub where they perform and race out to the desert to stir up a little mayhem. After karate expert Varla kills an innocent man, the voluptuous trio takes his girlfriend hostage as they attempt to wheedle a hidden fortune from a misogynistic old man and his muscle-bound, brain-damaged son. The film was a follow-up to an earlier Meyer movie. Meyer said, quote, "We had just done a film called Motor Psycho, which was about 3 bad boys and had gone through the roof. So I said, well, let's do one with 3 bad girls." The screenplay is credited to Moran from a original script story by Russ Meyer. The first draft of the movie was titled The Leather Girls and was written over a brief 4-day period by Moran, who also collaborated on Common Law Cabin and Good Morning and ... Goodbye with Meyer. The screenplay went through a second working title, The Man Killers, and had already begun production when the sound editor, Richard S. Brumer, came up with the now immortal final title. Although neither Moran nor Meyer overtly cited any previous or prior works as inspiration, the plot has been called a, quote, loose remake of The Desperate Hours or possibly The Virgin Spring by one film critic, and, quote, a pop art settling of Eumenides by a classical scholar. So very classical, mythology in this. Laurie Williams on being cast in the movie, quote, "Russ didn't want to hire me because he didn't think I had a big enough bust. I said I could use push-ups into my bra, which I did. He didn't know whether it would work, but then in rehearsals he finally said, okay. I kind of did my part like a cartoon, like the rest of the film, bigger than life." Russ Meyer on working with Tura Satana, quote, "She had a substantial bosom and wasp waist. She had the capability of dealing with the martial arts segments. She was recommended to me by Haji. She made it clear during the shooting that she didn't like didn't like my discouragement of connubial bliss on my time. I didn't want something to occur that might make one of the participants quit and end up on a bus, leaving me up the river. She told me she couldn't work under those circumstances, that for that length of time she couldn't work without men. She knew I didn't like that. She said that she couldn't function without sex. I said, okay, you, not me. I asked her if there was anyone on the crew that she wanted. She looked over to the assistant cameraman, and I walked over and asked if he would like to go to bed with her. My only request is that she only do it once a night. I wanted her to be fresh." She said, okay. Years later, I asked him if it was once a night, and he smiled and said, "No, it was every hour." Tura was very much in charge of during Pussycat. Women have found the movie to be fun and attractive. Most of my films are directed to the one-armed viewer. She is a very strong woman, and because of that, the film has found a lot of female fans. I think women today feel a lot better of her taking charge and maintaining control of the situation. Women have come up to me in England and New York and have said, quote, "It's about time someone did this." Well, it was made over 20 years ago. Meyer on the appeal of the movie, quote, "Pussycat has lived, and I've been with it all over in Russia, Germany, almost every country, really." Filmmaker John Waters said that this movie is his favorite film of all time, saying, quote, "Beyond a doubt, the best movie ever made. It is possibly better than any film that will be made in the future." In 2021, the Walking Dead star Norman Reedus announced that his production company would be making a television series version of the movie. Quote, "I've been watching Russ Meyer's film since I was a kid, wearing my Faster Pussycat Kill Kill shirt to school. It's safe to say I'm beyond inspired by Russ's style of filmmaking, and I'm over the moon excited for the opportunity to reimagine this story for the modern world."
Do we have to do that, though?
Yeah.
There's no need to reimagine.
That's the world we live in, y'all.
It's right there.
Variety 1965, Faster Pussycat Kill Kill is a somewhat sordid, quite sexy, and very violent murder and kidnap theft meller, which includes elements of rape, lesbianism, and sadism. I didn't even mention that there's lesbianism.
Where's the lesbianism? I don't remember any lesbianism.
Are you kidding me? Rosie was a lesbian. She was in love with Varla the whole time.
She was. Clothed in faddish leather and boots and equipped with sports cars. Some good performances emerged from a one-note script via very good Russ Meyer direction and his outstanding editing. And in 1995, Roger Ebert said, "Take away all the jokes, the elaborate camera angles, the violence, the action, and the sex, and what remains is the quintessential Russ Meyer image. A towering woman with enormous breasts who dominates all the men around her, demands sexual satisfaction, and casts off men in the same way that In mainstream sexual fantasies, men cast aside women. Meyer's extraordinary women are, of course, fascinating to those with breast fetishes, but look a little longer and you will notice that the breasts are not always presented as centers of desire. Instead, they're weapons used to intimidate men. On that note, let's talk a little bit about Faster Pussycat Kill Kill. Grace, I'm going to start with you because I believe out of the four of us, you're the only one who has seen this. Because Jessica, you and Andrew had not seen this before, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So Grace, you're the Pussycat expert.
Yes, I'm the Pussycat. I've always been. It's who I am. It's a way of life, and the way that this movie found me and has held me close to its ample, substantial bosom has been the most meaningful relationship of my life. I live for this movie. I live for Russ Meyer. I love his philosophy. I love the way these women look. I aspire and admire every single frame. I worship at the altar of hot electric sex. This is incredible. This movie is everything.
Sex.
So I will not hear a single word about how it exploits women, how it's the male gaze. I don't give a fuck. It's not true. Think critically for a second. This is it. This is everything I look for in a movie. It's violence. Every line is a line. I mean,
what is that?
And also, like,
no, you're right. Every line is a line.
Every
line is a line.
That's my favorite thing about
right.
it. Yeah,
it's
She's
true.
right.
Yes, of course. And as a proud Italian American woman, I am like very happy to like see myself so well represented. I don't think that what Haji does is like a caricature or like a parody. I think it's like very critical and very well thought out portrayal of this a Rosie character, you know?
I couldn't tell she was supposed to be Italian. I was
She's
trying
Italian.
to figure
She
out
says,
what
I'm going to
ethnicity
spin
was
a dry
supposed to be
you.
the
That
whole
means
time.
I'm going to spin dry you in English.
Thank
That
you for
was
that
Italian.
translation.
Man, I'm glad that you were not offended by that, because that accent was like, I mean, because Haji is played by an Asian woman, so it's like, I
guess that's why I was confused. Like there felt like a mismatch between.
No, I mean, she like studied. I read that she like took acting. I'm just kidding. I don't know.
You know,
I read it on IMDb.
Hey,
I wrote it on her IMDb page. She studied under Maslow, like she, you know, or not Maslow. What is it?
Maslow hierarchy. of
Maslow.
needs.
What's the one? What is it, Mavis?
Maslow's
Maslow,
hierarchy of
what's the one?
needs.
No,
Okay,
not
so-
that one. It's
He had other hierarchies.
Stanislavski.
Oh, okay.
That she
How many
studied that.
hierarchies can you have?
That's
Grace, question. So
Yes.
going back to the thing you said about like, I will not, you know, I do not give a shit about the arguments about the male gaze in this movie, or exploitation or whatever. Now I'm not going to make that argument because I agree with you. But like, what would you say to that argument? Like, what's the
I would
debunking
say
of that?
yes, these women are beautiful. They are stunning. Like there's no question about that. And I think that the way that the camera looks at these women is exactly how Russ looks at these women, is exactly how Russ Meyer looks at them, in this sort of like, that is beautiful. Like that
Like
is art.
worshipful.
Yes, there's definitely this she is a god. There's this like goddess worship aspect to it, which I really like. I would also say that like, yes, these women are beautiful. Yes, their looks, you know, are they use them to their advantage, you know. Yes, you're looking at me, but it's like you're looking exactly where I want you to look.
Mm-hmm.
I still control that. Then there's also this sort of they have real agency. I mean, they suffer the consequences of these awful actions. Like they do terrible, awful things, and no one comes in to save them. They're beautiful damsels in distress. No one swings in to rescue them. No, suffer. You did these things. You murdered, you killed, all because you were what was it? You got the hots for the long green, like because you want money, and you're gonna suffer for that. Like your greed is your own downfall. And
I didn't expect
really
the movie to kill them off. I thought that was kind of shocking.
Well, yeah. I mean, what are they going to do? Are they going to ride off into the sunset? I mean,
yeah,
it's still like a story where like bad things happen to bad people. Like they're fun to watch, and I'm definitely rooting for her. I'm like, yeah, knock his lights out. You know, yell at him, karate chop him, stab his ass. Like,
yeah, and like all those that whole family they run into is like just chock full of like weird bad people too. I mean, I guess it's mostly the dad who's the bad guy, and like the one son is like he can't really help what's going on, and the other is like maybe a bit more morally conflicted or something. But like the situation of this movie of like this group of people meeting this group of people, it feels like it's funny. I'm wearing a Texas Chainsaw Massacre shirt right now. It's like if the family from Texas Chainsaw Massacre just like met another family from Texas Chainsaw Massacre and just like ruined each other's lives. That feels like the
maybe that's the show that Norman Reedus is going to make. It's going to be like a sitcom, and it's going to be just two terrible people.
Meet the Pussycats.
Yeah. Jessica, what did you make of the movie?
So I'm not really like an exploitation film kind of gal. I less so than Grace. I'm kind of like
I don't think anybody's on Grace's level.
Yeah,
watching like lots of like violence and sex is not my fave thing in the world, and not how I'm like, yeah, this is a great way that I want to spend my time. However, I do think that I think with this film specifically, like I agree with Grace on how empowering it is for women, and like specifically women of color, because like 2/3 of the leads are women of color. And so that to me was like blew me away. Like I was like, this is an older movie and there are women of color who are in a gang who are like kicking people's asses. Like that's kind of insane, to be honest. And I was like very captivated by Varla, and like her character is just power in a person. Like it is like she's given so much power and so much control, and it is like in all of the ways that she is shot and in all of the ways that people look at her, like it is like she is like demanding the attention of everyone.
I like to think big.
Yeah.
She says, she's like, I like to think big.
Exactly. And like I read that Tura like improvised a lot of her lines. Like she played a huge part in writing the lines for her character. She became the character, and they gave her an opportunity to do that, which is also kind of insane for the time. Of the women in the movie had a lot to do with the way that the movie was made, and they were given room to creatively partake in the process of making it. And it was so interesting to me that I was like, I literally could just watch a movie about how this movie was made. That's how much I like how interesting all of that was, because it like seems like something that didn't really happen at the time. And like Varla's character is very strong and empowered, but it's also very cool to learn that like Tura like had a martial arts background, and they let her like do her own stunts and like be a part of it in that way too, which is also just so badass. Like that part of it was very cool too.
Yeah, I think I was looking a little bit on, or I think I came across it in like a Letterboxd review, but Tura, this was kind of like she did mainly like exploitation films similar to this, and this was kind of like her thing, like beating up a bunch of people, predominantly men, was kind of like the thing that that was her whole brand. Yeah, that was her whole brand going on.
What a brand.
And yeah, it's very interesting to kind of see like there's such a stark difference between all three of the characters. You know, they all very much have like very vivid vivid but different personalities, all like kind of going for the most part to the same goal. Like Grace, you mentioned Haji's character, it's kind of doing a completely different thing than like the Laurie Williams character, who's doing a completely different thing than Tura, and it's kind of fun. I think it's like a perfect like marriage of the three characters all kind of coming together, because you have all that, and it creates all of this kind of like, I say chaos not in like a bad way, but like this great chaos between like what you're describing, Andrew, where you have these people that they're coming in contact with and them, because just the chaos of all those personalities compared with that, it's just like, that's where a lot of the fun comes from. And I had the one review talking about it's a one note script, but a lot of what's great about it kind of is less about what's actually on the page and more about just how these characters are engaging with one another. You think of like, well, I think somebody mentioned that Tura's every line that she says in this movie is a sexual innuendo. Yeah. She never says like a normal phrase. Everything is a sexual innuendo, and it's less like how clever it is on the page, and it's more just the way she says
the audacity. They commit to it.
Well, she just like says it with like fucking swagger too.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know, like you think about the whole scene when she's seducing the one brother there. And like, it's funny how he like completely switches like 20 minutes later, but like in that moment, he's just like, yeah, I mean, I'm powerless. I'm sorry. I'm in love with you.
Yeah.
She casts a spell, and like, there's such like, I said this to you earlier when we were talking about Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, how there's like there's a poetic nature to these lines, a lyrical nature. Mm-hmm. It's musical. It's like scatting. It's improv. It's so clever. When they're doing the timing trials, and the Tommy and the girl, they drive up. He's like, you guys doing some timing trials, you know, how fast were you going? She's like, we know how fast we were going. You could time that thing with an hourglass. Like, was someone talking about my figure? Like, it's so like they're listening. Like, it is so much less about like what's less on the, it's less about like the dialogue that's written, but it's how these actors are.
There's a musicality to it. Yeah. And Grace, like, I know you're also a big fan of Elvira, and I feel the same way about the script for Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, right? Like, this is a very specific type of writing and type of dialogue that I feel like is almost like a lost art or something. Like, are there like a large stable of movies for you that like have that kind of writing to them? Like, is there a way that you would describe it?
I mean, it's I don't know. I think it kind of goes back. Like, it feels very staged. It feels like theater. It feels like vaudeville almost. Mm-hmm. Like joke after joke after joke after joke, line after line. You're just facing the audience and you're just spitting them out rapid fire, and they just keep laughing. You keep them coming back. I mean, this Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, Heather's Jawbreakers, Mean Girls. Like, there are those movies where like every line. Romy and Michelle's high school reunion, like, I almost said High School Musical. Romy and Michelle's high school musical. That'd be great, but it's like there's definitely this style, and it's definitely one that. How many times can I say definitely not Rain Man, definitely not Rain Man, but there's this style that I lean towards and that I like to pick up on, and it when it hits. It's firing on all cylinders, and it just makes it just electrifies me.
Yeah, there's definitely something with exploitation movies that it kind of is speaking a different language than than most movies. Like, you can't really go in and assess this movie like you would something, like the Elevator to the Gallows that we talked about last week. Those are like working on completely different frequencies, and exploitation, especially, it's to a degree like looking at a genre movie. But I also think that it even has more of a different lens that you have to look at, because nothing being said is like remotely serious. It is literally kind of speaking its own language here. And there's something about I equate it to almost like watching like a Shakespeare adaptation or like a Jane Austen adaptation where
Yeah.
it's
Covering
about
a
the
different register.
it's it's just it's all about the language, and it either works for you or it doesn't work for you. And I think we can get into like the kind of violence element of like how exploitation movies really work. But I think just as you're talking about, Grace, the language aspect of it, it's something that you either get on board with or you don't. And I think in the difficulty I think a lot of people have when they watch these type of movies is they kind of look at it like they would any other movie, and you're like, no, this movie is absurd. Like it's immediately absurd.
We've covered other exploitation movies on the show, right? We did Pam Grier's Black Mama, White Mama.
Yeah.
We did The Velvet Vampire with Stephanie Rothman, and some others that I'm having a hard time thinking of right now. But I feel like the density with which this movie is written feels uncharacteristic of the genre, right? I think that a lot of times the writing in these movies is a little lackadaisical because that's not what people are there for, right? So that's one reason why I find it so much impressive here.
Yeah, your pizza's here, ma'am. Oh
Yeah.
no, I can't pay you.
Yeah, it's like they really did not need to go as hard as they did.
Well, then after a while, it just becomes like impressive how much they just keep it going.
Yeah,
like the fact that you get to the climax of the movie and she's still spitting out sexual innuendos is incredible.
Yeah,
like with her dying breath, she might as well have said a sexual innuendo. It'd been great. Let's just also talk real quick about like the violence element. Jessica, you mentioned before that like that's always the violence and kind of the how female or other characters are portrayed in these movies is kind of a touch point when it comes to exploitation movies. That's what kind of made our discussion around like Pam Grier interesting, just because she definitely was kind of somebody in her own realm when it came to that. And it's similar. It's kind of the same here. When you look at when y'all look at the violence in this movie, it's not as like vivid violence as like some of the Pam Grier stuff where she's using guns and there's like blood spattering all over the place. And it's much more like on the Tarantino spectrum of things. This one is almost a funny one because there's violence, but it's not as grotesque. They're karate chopping people for the most part.
there's a knife.
Yeah, they
There's
use a knife, a car. The car one is like super funny.
Really like
because
that
they're
one.
just like mowing people down, like just driving over them. And I love whenever she is like trying to kill the dude with the car and he's like using his muscles to just like try to push it away, and it's such a cool scene.
Well, it's like you're also cutting back and forth between these like really close-up shots that make it seem like they're having sex while she's doing it.
It's the ramming, this car, like penetrating.
Well, there's the one that was great was when they're walking by the train and the train just goes and then it cuts over to them like close to each other and then it goes. It's great. It's stupid. I loved it.
I like the violence. I think back to that opening monologue where it's, violence contained and then it gets like really like, I kind of want to like plug my ears. Like the dialogue gets a little skin crawly where he's like contained in like the supple flesh of woman. It's like,
yeah.
Okay, great. Like I'm very uncomfortable in my own body that contains all this violence, but it's like soft, easy, smooth, like violence with a curve to it, like curves in all the right places, like it's suggested violence.
I don't necessarily want to co-sign this philosophy, but like the way that I understand it, going back to what you were saying, Grace, earlier about like the movie kind of like looking up at the power of women or the beauty of women and kind of like worshiping in awe of them. It like I think what the narration is kind of implying is that like women are so powerful in this way. If they were also like cruel and violent, they would be like this unstoppable force, something like that, right? I don't know. That's a thought.
That's a world I want to live in.
I mean,
campaigning for. What a brand! I am a brand ambassador.
unstoppable, but like Grace
Yeah.
said before too, like there is punishment for
They
them
do
as
die.
well. Like
Yeah,
they
right.
die, and the only woman who does survive is the innocent one. Like it is the one who didn't partake in all of the other stuff.
Right.
Actually, both of them are sort of seen as the innocent ones. Like
there is kind of
the ones that survive.
There's a morality tale-y element to this, which is weird. And Grace, you and I have talked about Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. I struggle with that movie because of how fun I found it when it was like up. And then it eventually is like, but all that stuff is actually like bad and depraved though. Like it, and I'm sure it's done somewhat tongue-in-cheek, right? But it just feels like this weird disconnect that I don't need. And in Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, anyways.
Well, it's such a, thinking, kind of bringing in like more modern discussions. You see people get going on like, and it's been since he started his career, get going on like Tarantino because they feel like his movies are like, it's like it's promoting the violence. Like oh, like you're gonna watch Pulp Fiction, and be like, I want to do that. And so like it's almost it's kind of a weird dissonance between this, which is like, I think we can all agree that the three women at the center of the movie is who everybody wants to be. Like they're the coolest characters in the movie. But yeah, I don't like can you end with just them kind of like walking away from it? I guess so. But I guess, in 1965, you kind of have to be like, yeah, they're super cool. But
do you think it's like a us covering our asses kind of thing on the
it
part
could
of Russ
be because
Meyer
I think the thing with Russ Meyer is he's like, I'm going to push the limits as much as I can and then like kind of bring it down so that I don't get like yelled at.
Yeah, it's like definitely like these guys are gonna die. Like, who cares? It's a wild ride. Sit back, relax. I don't have much beyond that.
Do you know much about Russ Meyer outside of like those two movies? I've only seen
personally. He has appeared to me in a vision.
What do you say there?
He said, well, I can't really repeat it.
Oh, sorry. No, that's
I don't know what the rating is on here. But
we don't have a rating, but that's fine.
But what I do know about him, I think he put his wife in Valley of the Dolls, and so it's nice to see a legacy of Hollywood wife guys, a la Rob Zombie. Like that's really fun. I just think he was a guy that just really like loved movies. I think I've seen bits and pieces of Super Vixens. He's also a guy that like really loves to like support like sex workers. Like a lot of these women in his movies were go-go dancers, porn stars, sort of these women on the fringes of entertainment, like John Waters tend to pull from. So I see that in him, and I know that about him. I just really respect anyone that is so bold as to like really put themselves on display. Like, this is me, this is what I like, this is what I like to look at, and I know we all like to look at this, and this is great.
It's kind of sex positive. Yeah.
Like there's definitely like that sort of, I look at it that way. I don't think that there needs to be a reboot, and I don't think that our more modern audience could handle it, because everyone is so like, I don't care about like sex in a movie if it doesn't advance the plot. Well, sometimes sex is just sex, like, and that's what he gives us more often than not, or do people look different to you when they're horizontal, to quote? There's so much to this, that, and to Russ and to his legacy, that like really speaks to me as sort of, I guess, like a repressed woman that's like opening herself up and then empowering.
A lot Catholic.
A long time. Got my rosary on. So
Also, like, I also just wonder, like, the reason why they have these like exploitation movies is because it's like stuff that they didn't have in movies before. Like they weren't allowed to have violence in movies, and they weren't allowed to have sex. And like we live in a world where you can get those things literally at the click of a button. So like what it just doesn't seem like it would make the same sort of impact. So like why is my
And I think a lot of people don't see the appeal of that. Like I have a hard time putting myself like in the period of history where I've just experienced the end of the Hays Code, and then all of a sudden in America there's just like porn theaters in every city, right? Like that would probably be a thing that people like wanted to do because they like didn't have access to erotic images in the way that people do today, right? Like that would be a huge, I don't know, like new sensation, I guess.
That's interesting because in like all the morality stuff, like could that just be like that holdover of like it's okay, here's the Hays Code, calm down.
Yeah, it's like they're putting their own Hays Code on it.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of differentiating. Like Russ Meyer's kind of going like, so it's a little bit of porn, but it's also cinema.
Yeah, I think he said he was like he got like a NC-17 rating for Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, and he's like, if I had known, I would have gotten that. I would have put way more sex and violence in it.
Yeah.
He's also interesting because he brought up a lot of filmmakers. People like Martin Scorsese like worked under him, and so because there was such a low, it's not like today you have somebody who makes like an indie movie or maybe directs some like television or something like that, and then goes on to like make a Marvel movie or some sort of bigger movie. Like you're kind of getting thrown into the wolves there to a degree because you're going from something a little bit smaller budget into a giant movie. And Russ Meyer, like because these B movies that he were making were kind of low fruit. It wasn't like anybody was expecting a lot out of them. Yeah, I know.
That was two you had.
Mm-hmm. Was expecting much out of them. It allowed a lot of filmmakers to also kind of learn the craft, but learn how things fucking operate, learn how to like run a set and do all that kind of stuff. And so it was like he also had this like cool pipeline of filmmakers learning how to just make a movie happen. So that then as they moved on to larger careers, they had those like basic skills down because they learned it while working on these B pictures and moved on to like, big movies. That's something I wish we had. I wish we had something like that today where like, you mentioned The Gray Man. I wish the Russo brothers would have actually like learned how to make a movie before they started making movies.
I wish they had seen a movie before they.
I wish they'd seen a movie. That would have been nice too.
That would have been, I mean, like wishful thinking, right?
Yeah. So, something to mention as well.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts or any last fetishes that you would like to get off your plate from?
Who's everyone? Kill. I mean, is this too easy of a question if I asked who's everyone's favorite Pussycat in this movie?
Josie.
Yes, too. It is too.
Nice.
No.
Varla. Like Varla's, like her bosom could be the second character in the movie.
Did you guys notice how anytime she was like she was never like fully like I don't know, she took up so much of the frame. It's like you said, like very commanding presence. Like I really enjoyed that. And as someone who regularly communicates through yelling, I also really loved her delivery.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely Varla's a standout for me, but I fell in love with Rosie. And then Billy for me was just she was fun, she was light, she was pretty, she was blonde. She was everything I love and hate about blondes. And I'll go on the record for that.
We don't want to make controversial statements here.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if someone down the line wants to just make a biopic about Tura. If you just look her up and just look up her life story, it's insane. And also speaks to like she's obviously a survivor. Like I saw a Letterboxd review that was like when you find out that Tura was like gang raped when she was 9 years old, and then she tracked down all 5 of the men and exacted her revenge, and then see her in this as Varla, it is kind of like, damn, like she does really like embody that character. And she had to, so like after that happened, she learned martial arts and tried to become like able to do like self-defense and that sort of thing. And then whenever she was, I think, like 15, her parents tried to marry her off to a man, and they married her off to a guy when she was 15, and she ran away from him after 9 months and then fled to California. And she got a fake ID so that they thought that she was 18 so that she could be an exotic dancer. And that's how she made her money. But like the fact that she survived and then went on to become like a movie star, like that's insane. And also the fact that like Russ Meyer is like Grace said before, like giving a chance to these sex workers and like showing the creative ways that they contribute to his film, like that itself is amazing. Like it is super cool to see.
I will tell you, Jessica, there's I didn't say what year this came out, but there's a documentary called Tura. It has an exclamation point by Cody Jarrett that includes John Waters and Margaret Cho. That is out.
okay.
So there is a documentary about her.
Nice.
Yeah, because I'm just looking at the movie. It's funny, Grace, that you mentioned Rob Zombie, because she was in Rob Zombie's The Haunted World of El Super Bisto.
Very cool.
So
I'm sure they had a lot to talk about.
Yeah, tying it all
It's Hollywood.
together.
It's a movie about movies.
Exactly. I'm like just looking through her. She was in a Billy Wilder movie.
What?
Irma
Vet.
If only she was an Irma Vet.
If
The new
only.
Irma Vet.
The movie is a Parisian policeman gives up everything for the love of a free living sex worker.
Hell yeah.
Oh, it's Shirley MacLaine and Jack Lemmon again.
Wow.
But I guess she's in
With
it too.
Billy
Jack
Wilder.
Lemmon in.
Yeah. So we're all connecting the dots here.
Young
Cinema.
critics watch old movies and we're able to make these connections. This is why, really quick, tell your viewers, this is why they should go back. They should watch older movies. You learn so much more. You gain a better understanding and appreciation for the films that for the films that you watch to come. My cats are fighting right now, so I won't mute myself. You'll just have to hear that you'll have to hear that faster Pussycat kill fight in the background. Watch older movies. Just because it's in black and white, just because it's in another language. Watch movies if you care at all.
Hell
Just
yeah.
watch
Co-sign.
other ones.
Yeah, watch movies.
Watch movies.
We think that as well.
Nobody. Okay. That
I'll
was
get
great,
off my,
Grace.
thank you. I'll get off my
That was great.
soapbox.
Oh, we should have done like you and the big one here. Like we should.
Yeah, what the hell?
yeah.
Like,
I don't know. I don't know if I can.
now that I know that you can do that, make mine bigger again. There we go. There we go. Hey, pretty girl.
There you go, Grace. Take the stage there. All right. Well, that'll wrap up this episode of Cinematary. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Cinematary, on Twitter and Instagram at handle @Cinematary, and on Letterboxd at letterboxd.com/Cinematary, where we post all 2 movies that we talked about in this episode. If you'd like to support the show, head over to patreon.com/Cinematary. Whether it's $5, $1, we have a few $10. We're always happy to find support for the show. Thank you to our supporters, Kim, Chad Newsom, Corey Willingham, Candace Sisson, Ron Hayes, Teresa Marsathi, Titus Arthur, and Tyler Chandler. We appreciate your patronage. Next week, we're going to continue our Young Critics Watch Old Movies series, and we're diving into a little bit of socialism. I Am Cuba in 1964.
Oh.
I'm sure we won't have any politically charged discussions during the movie. I'm sure it'll just be like this movie, And then the week after that, we'll be getting into some John Waters, so it'll be a whole.
Who all is on the I Am Cuba episode?
That's for.
I know I'm on it, but
I don't know. We're gonna have to go find.
We're
We're going to go find all the comrades. We're gonna go find the comrades and talk.
I didn't say that. You said that.
I think the CIA is looking at me now. No, of course the FBI is not, because what does the FBI do anyway? All right, that's the end of the episode. Goodbye forever, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.